And we are live. It always takes me a minute to figure out if we're live or not. I'm looking around at multiple things to figure it out, but we are live. This is episode 7 of the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. I'm Laura DiPietro stand-in. These are my program success coaches, LT and Joanne. And we're really happy to talk to you today about this huge topic, which is how self-criticism leads to failure and how self-love leads to success. So thank you for joining us today. So the way that we decide these topics is, we look at our own lives, of course, but we also look at the lives of all the women that we're dealing with and what are the different themes that we are seeing, not just here in this big group, but in the women that we're working with in the program. And this is always in a thread that runs throughout everything that we talk about, everything that we do, because it is rampantly a problem with the women that we deal with. And I think it's a big problem in our society. And it's not something that we usually unpack. And it's also really easy to say, to throw around terms like self-love. I think a lot of people don't even know what that means. Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to unpack today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first question I wanted to ask, because I want to sort of make this a full circle conversation. When was the first time that you remember being self-conscious about your body? How old were you? What was the situation, if you can recall?
Go ahead, LT.
I thought about this, and it goes back to an elementary school age, even though I was not big at all. I was a normal sized kid, but I honestly remember doing this. And I don't know where I pulled this memory from, but y'all remember Richard Simmons?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I remember writing him a letter when I was in elementary school. I never mailed it, but I wrote him a letter because I was something in the 70-something pound range. I'm a child. Yeah. And my friends were more in the 60-something pound range. Mm-hmm. So we're going back to then, but that's my first memory. But I really didn't have much of a problem in high school with it. I always felt normal and the right size and everything. I was on the drill team, real active, real dance line. And I remember that our advisor for the drill team told me one time that I was going to have to work on those hips. Okay. Yeah. I was 120 pounds. Yeah. Okay. I didn't need to work on any hips, but that started something in my mind. But the very first program I ever did was when I was in college, but those were little fleeting memories that go back. So we're going back to elementary age.
Right. Mm-hmm. What about you, Joanne?
I think the first time that I ever remember feeling a real problem with it was in middle school when we had when dances started to be a thing. And I think it was the 8th grade dance. And I remember going dress shopping, and it was just, and I, like LT said, I was not a large person at that time. Probably was underweight actually, but just trying on those dresses and trying to compare myself to what I knew other girls were getting for their dresses. And I've been thinking about that, and I'm like, this is just a racket that we put ourselves and our daughters through, this whole dress shopping thing. Oh, yeah. I'm over it. Like, I'm so over it.
Yeah. So for me, in about 3rd or 4th grade, my best friend got Lee press-on nails. And I was so envious. And I said to my mom, can I get some Lee press-on nails? And she said, if you lose 10 pounds. Oh. And I was probably about the same, like, again, 70, 80 pounds. Like, I was not I was a normal sized child. So I remember that clearly. I remember where we were sitting when she said it, and it was such a blow to me because I I didn't have any idea how I would do that. How do you lose 10 pounds? Like I was little. Um, I think that was really probably in her mind some way of saying you're not getting them. But to me, you know, it was a blow to my self-esteem. Um, so I know you guys both mentioned this, but this is also, you not only feel it yourself, but then you're starting to compare yourself to other girls.
Mhm.
And much like LT, when I was in 7th grade, I was in cheerleading, and the advisor, who was not a skinny woman herself, said to me and one other girl, um, I want the whole squad to look uniform. So you two should start watching your weight. And, she's like, maybe don't eat after like 5 o'clock. That was her, thing. And again, so I start thinking, okay, well, I'm looking at these other cheerleaders, and it was really the two people that we were short. And so I've always been a more short, compacted person. And these girls were a little taller, a little lankier. And so I remember just thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to achieve that, So again, it's like nobody has any real, don't eat after 5 o'clock when you just got, by the time that I got done with cheerleading practice, it was 5 o'clock. So it's like, do I just not eat dinner? So it was just impossible from the start, I think is really what we're all saying. So to switch gears just for a minute, I've been thinking about this a lot, because of all of the things that are going on in our society right now in the United States, and the people are having a lot of trouble coping. What kinds of coping mechanisms, good or bad, were you taught growing up, or did you glean from the adults in your life?
I don't remember being taught any coping mechanisms. I remember being taught, suck it up,
Yeah,
get over it. You got
walk it
it
up.
good. Right.
Yeah.
Buck up, buttercup. Yeah. Kind of like my mother was always comparing people that were very less fortunate and that
Mhm.
didn't have much. And so we always had. And so that was always the theme. You've got it good.
Right.
So
So
this was a non-issue to her, I don't think. And I don't think she meant anything by it. It's just she didn't deal with weight the way I did in her adult lifetime. So I had it at a much earlier age than she did. She's always kind of been the same.
yeah. So in your family, it was like, as long as you have the material things you need, you're fine. And there's no
You're
reason.
fine.
Yeah.
You have tons more than the average bear. What in the world are you complaining about?
Yeah.
That was the bottom line.
Right.
Mm.
What about you, Joe?
Well, I don't think I was actually taught any coping mechanisms, but in hindsight, what I was being taught, subliminally, I guess, was eat, drink, and spend money
Yeah.
just recklessly. There was a lot of alcoholism in my family. And on the other side of my family, where the alcohol wasn't an issue, it was stuff yourself full of cakes and pastries and ice cream and spend money just recklessly.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't have money, but it was like rack up the credit cards and go on a shopping spree. And so that was taught to me, even though they didn't probably mean for it to be.
Right. Yeah. It was very similar in my house, like a lot of suck it up. Which we were very solidly middle class. And so, yeah, that was part of it. Like, what could possibly be the problem here? Even though there was drug use and abuse, physical abuse in my house, it's like you still weren't allowed to complain about it because you still have it better than so many other people.
Mhm.
And I think, that makes you question as a child how you feel, because when somebody's invalidating your feelings, Like you're saying, you know, you're feeling like I'm anxious, I'm upset, I'm not happy, I'm worried, you know, all of these things. And somebody says to you, those feelings don't matter. You don't have any right to feel that way. It makes you question throughout your life, what if your feelings are valid? And so that for me has been a theme of my life, is that I will invalidate my own feelings. And so as I've gotten older and more in tune with that, you know, I'm very sensitive now if somebody tries to invalidate my feelings. But back then, I think it just took me years to even figure out what my feelings were. Because then you're taught you have to have the same feelings, which I think this is what we're all saying. You have to have the same feelings as the adults in your life. You're not allowed to have different feelings. We all feel the same way. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
We all cope the same way. This is, you know, suck it up. Or in my house, yeah. So my mom would go every Friday, you know, or a lot of Fridays, she would go get a cake, a birthday cake from Kroger, and we'd eat it on the weekends, and there's nobody's birthday. So it's like she would make, you know, we were always making like no bake cookies. And I mean, it was just a constant sugar fest all the time. And big trips to the mall on the credit cards. And so, which produced even more anxiety for her,
Right.
you know? So it was just like you guys said, nobody's teaching you how to cope with anything. So I've been thinking about that a lot as we are trying to cope with this COVID stuff. Like nobody has any, I mean, not only that's a new situation, but also a lot of us just don't even have any decent coping skills.
Right.
So, you know, what do you guys think, and we touched on this before in other episodes, but what do you think the definition of success is in our society when it comes to women?
In our society, I think it's a woman that can do it all and look good doing it. You know, it's like that, like we talked before, she can bring home a bacon, fry it up in a pan and still look good for her man. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
right.
the way that it is, because we're so harsh to celebrities. Look at celebrities. I'm talking about America as a whole. When they gain just a tiny bit of weight, they're on the cover of some magazine or a tabloid or something. And it's no wonder they feel such intense pressure. And that's on a national level. Can you imagine if we had the spotlight on us at a national, international level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Joanne?
Well, you know, we did touch on this a few weeks back about what that looked like. And at the time, you know, I was thinking about it and I thought the same as LT, like you have to do everything and you have to look good doing it. But the more I've been, you know, sort of watching the news and watching, you know, listening to what people are saying, I really feel like women base a lot of their success on their looks. Yeah. And that's what like LT just said, they're on the cover of the magazine and somebody's criticizing how they look. And it doesn't matter how successful they are or how talented they are. It all boils back to, well, what do they look like? Or what are they wearing? And it all comes back to either fashion or makeup or hair or something that's just a superficial thing. And I really think the root of that is because women don't believe in themselves enough to feel like they could have success in other areas. So really the only thing attainable for them is how I look every day when I go out. So, yeah. I mean, I think it's a really vicious cycle and a vicious message that looks like sort of supersedes everything else about a woman.
Right. So we're trained basically, you know, combining what both of you guys have said, we're trained to judge ourselves that way and judge other women that way. And, you know,
yeah. And it's not only on weight, it's on how we age.
Oh, yeah.
How you look, how your lines and your creases and all that. So there's a whole industry that
totally different standards for men, completely different standards.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Men have character when they age.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're not allowed to age, and we're, there's so many things. We're not, women, if a woman decides she doesn't want to have children, there's a huge amount of judgment because we're kind of reduced to our reproductive ability.
Right.
There's just, whether or not, because now too, if you decide that you want to be a stay-at-home mom and not work outside the home, there's judgment there. If you decide that you want to work outside the home and you have kids, there's judgment there. So, and honestly, with women, we're doing it to each other.
Yeah.
As much or more than men are doing it to us. That's the sad part, I think. Is so the things that I put down, that I wrote in the original post, and we have, in terms of what coping mechanisms that we have, Rona says, just do what you're told. So that's, no coping mechanism at all. Just keep going.
Right.
And Tammy says, I was always told you shouldn't feel like that, or which made me feel that my feelings weren't valid. And I just think that that's true for so many of us. So what I put down is that, what this leads to, what we see as coaches with women, and things that we've seen in ourselves. So you feel defeated and weak-minded because you can't trust your feelings, apparently. Exhausted and at the mercy of the wants and needs around you, because other people's feelings are more important than yours. Other people's needs are more important than yours. So you're also reduced to, how am I of service?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before too, about how you can get in that busyness trap of doing for others, because then we're taking the spotlight and the attention off ourselves, because we're not giving ourselves a minute to think about what we need, because it's too painful.
Right.
So we'll just go 90 to nothing for somebody else and put ourselves in the way back burner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's that's acceptable in society.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're taking time for yourself, people will say, oh, must be nice. Or they'll say that you're selfish.
Well, you got it made, don't you? Well, that's
right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Right.
I've heard that a lot.
Stuck and unable to get out of your rut and convinced nothing is ever really going to change. I mean, it is really hard, regardless of how you feel. This is definitely not a political statement. Regardless of how you feel about the fact that we have elected a woman for the first time to like the vice presidency, like a lot of the stuff that's out there is just talking about what outfit she wore. Like, that's what outfit did she wear to make her, to make her speech. And that goes back, further. I can remember when Sarah Palin, everybody wanted to break down her appearance, when she came on the scene. Like, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you look at. This is what women are judged by. If you are, the first lady, whether you're looking at Michelle Obama or Melania Trump or whoever, it's what are they wearing?
Right.
Oh, they came out in this. Nobody gives a crap what the president wears. They're like, this is what the woman is wearing. When you think about Jackie Onassis, like, Jackie Kennedy, she, was this fashion icon. She did so many other things, but the fashion is what people really talk about still to this day. So there's just, when we look at society, I mean, it's no wonder that we feel stuck when this is what we're comparing ourselves to all the time, whether we want to or not, because that's what society's doing. And also, confused about how you ended up where you are. Like, nobody wants to, nobody envisions for themselves. I think when you're younger, you envision success, or at least you're trying to envision success. I know for me, when I kind of had this moment, which I've talked about, where I purely by mistake, caught myself naked in a full length mirror because I was in my bedroom doing something and we had a mirror on the closet. And I usually was pretty careful to avoid all that, but I managed to catch a glimpse of myself. And I just thought, oh my God, what has happened here? And so I think that's the other thing is we don't even know. It's like the process of where we started, where we might start feeling, you know, like in elementary school, like I'm not quite good enough, how that goes from there to years later, just being, you know, like physically depleted. Like I don't even know that we think about it. We're on autopilot so much. Do you guys feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just sort of wake up one day and there it is.
Yeah. And when I look back through my journals, because I've journaled my whole life, and it just seems like that I might as well copied it and put a different date on it. It was always the same thing. Groundhog Day, once again, just feeling defeated. I can't get out of it. Why is this happening to me? Why aren't I strong enough? How come other people can do it and I can't? I mean, it was always the same. And so I set myself up for a defeated attitude. And when I look back on it, I'm talking about this doesn't encompass a couple of years. This is a wide span of years that I was doing this. And if you had told me, like I wrote in my testimonial, when I was 20 years old and going to Weight Watchers for the first time, if somebody had whispered in my ear, get ready, this is going to be 30 years worth of this, I would have said, what? 30 years? And yet here it is, 30 years worth.
Well, okay, so let's go. So when you, Tammy says she agrees with you on the journaling, like it's the same thing.
Yeah, just the years are different. That's
right.
It's different. Yeah.
So when you thought about starting a diet, you know, any time in your life, what was your thought process? How far did you think it through? Like, what made you, like, were you just like, what did you think about?
I only thought through about the first 10, 15 pounds. I was like, I just need to lose 15 pounds and I'll be happy. Like, that's as far as I thought. And I didn't really ever care what the mechanism was that was going to get that result. I just thought it through to, this will be the end where I'll be happy.
Yeah. And that was always the bottom line. When I do fill in the blank, then I'll be happy. It was always to be happy. Yeah. Mine was too. Every program.
Right. So we don't think it through.
No.
We don't think, is this sustainable? That's what I hear from women a lot. And I was the same way. Like, you're just so desperate to get the weight off that you're like, does this seem doable for right now?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you just go for it because you just, and you, I think part of you thinks like, well, I'll just get the weight off and then I'll figure it out. Like, it's not like you're.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Once this is gone, then we'll get it all together, but it'll be gone first. Right. And then when it starts creeping back up, like we talked the other day, it is the worst feeling in the world when you have been on a yo-yo train and you're going back up again. It is awful.
Right. So what is it? But let's dig into that. So what did it feel like? Because we've all been through this many times. And I don't think that we ever, when I was thinking of this question, I'm like, I wonder if anyone has ever really thought this through. What did it feel like when you start to slip? And what are the promises or the deals or whatever that you make with yourself? Because there's a moment in time, we all know it, where you're like, I'm just gonna go ahead and have that,
but I won't eat anything tomorrow at all.
Right.
If something, you made some kind of deal. The thing about it is it's kind of like those stages of grief. You know how you're in denial and then you have to, acceptance is at the end, but you're kind of fighting it and you have the anger, but you do the pleading and the begging and the, oh, and I'm just, and oh, Monday, it's not, and this is the last weekend, and you make
Monday,
all,
yeah.
you promise yourself. And then you do things like, I'm just going to drink water tomorrow. I may eat maybe a half of an orange, and that is it. I mean, you just do stuff like that.
Right.
And then it just, when it gets to be, when it's more than that 5 and 10 and you're hitting that 15 and 20, it's just like, forget it. See, I can't do this. That I knew I couldn't do this. I never can do anything right. What's wrong with me? You know, and then you start, I would not talk to a dog the way I talk to myself.
Right.
I have more compassion and kindness for a complete stranger in a Walmart parking lot than I have for myself at the time. Yeah. I wouldn't talk to anybody like that in a million years. Like, you're stupid, you're worthless. Why can't you get it together? What is wrong with you? This was common. This was everyday talk to myself, every day, multiple times a day.
What about, do you, Joanne, did you have an opportunity to think about, like, what are those first few moments and what's going through your mind when you're doing something that's not sustainable, and then you kind of decide, make that little decision that you're
I'm an all, you know me, I'm an all or nothing person. So when I start to slip, I'm not slipping, I'm diving in. Like, let's go on a bender here, you know, like I'm eating everything, I'm going out, I'm like, you know, I'm in a suburb of Chicago, so it's very easy to go off the deep end with really great food. So I'm like, you know, just give me all the bad stuff, and you only live once. So that, you know, that kind of plays with you, because then when you do that, you can easily in a weekend gain 5 pounds. So you didn't just slip. You put yourself before where you were before you started.
Yeah, you dove off the cliff, right?
Every time. I'm
about
a cliff
that.
diver.
Yeah.
So in our private group, we were talking about how you know, you start off in Phoenix and your goal is San Diego. And so you get halfway there, and there's, you know, you map out your trip, you get halfway there and there's a bump in the road. And instead of just hanging out there for a little bit, you just turn around and go back to Phoenix.
I go right back.
Every time. It's just, that's what yo-yo dieting is. Instead of figuring it out, where did we say the halfway mark was? You and I looked up the map.
It was Yuma. It was Yuma.
Oh,
yes, which was so perfect.
I have physically been in Yuma.
That's right.
Just get a hotel room and stay in Yuma for a day or two before we get back on the trip. Why do we have to turn around?
That's right. We turn around, go right back to Phoenix instead. So it's, you know, we never get to San Diego. So that's what we do. Rona says, I had the opportunity to reflect on a period of my life that I had very little recollection of. My high school boyfriend committed suicide 25 years ago, and the 5 to 7 years following were a big blur. Some friends and I retraced our personal experiences of the years that followed that event. Most of us have fuzzy memories. I think we were in shock. When I think of my childhood, I think my parents were in survival mode and just doing the best they could. They weren't trying to not teach me the skills to cope, but they didn't have a body of knowledge to teach from.
Right.
Yeah. Tammy says, I thought the same thing. I would be like, this is it. I'm finally going to do it. And then I'd fall off, and then I'd be like, forget it. Denial that I had to actually put in the work, and it wasn't sustainable. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's that feeling when you kind of are, you know, we make, like you guys were saying, we make deals with ourselves that, you know, it's only going to be today or this meal or this weekend or whatever. But I was thinking back to all the times that I did that, and that sort of sinking feeling you have, like, because you know, it's not just this weekend. You know, there's some part of you that knows that you are, that it doesn't matter what deal you make with yourself. So is there, how did, like you said, Lori, when you're completely off the wagon. Linda says Yuma's awesome. So we should all hang
We
out.
should just stay there for a little while until we get it back together, and then head on, fill up with gas and go on.
That's right. Recalibrate the trip and move forward.
Right.
Stop hanging out in Phoenix. So how, like you said, when you completely are like, forget it, I can't do this. How do you feel about yourself? Right? So you're feeling like, I'm weak.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this. How come other people can do this, but not me? Although really, no, other people aren't doing it either, because everybody is traveling from Yuma to Phoenix all the time. So, but these are patterns. You look at your life and these are patterns. So is there anything about that pattern that reminds you of how you felt when you were growing up, or in other relationships or situations in your life? Like when something is a pattern in one area of your life, it bleeds out. So is there any place that you can pinpoint where it's a similar pattern, or was a similar pattern for you?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I could not rock the boat at all. It was already a little shaky, a lot shaky at home with my parents. Just their own personal thing that they had going on. So I've always felt like I had to live a facade. And I think that's what happened, was I did not rock the boat with other people. I internalized it. And so instead of sharing or really coming clean with other people or seeking out help, I did quick fixes and I tried to do it myself. And that's where I think a lot of isolation came in later years, when I was doing bad, eating bad and thinking bad. I think I did isolate, because if I was safer when I kept people at an arm's length away, because I really did not want to get hurt. And so if I keep you right here, you can't hurt me. And so, but I was hurting myself worse than anybody with my thought process, because I wasn't just talking about my weight. I mean, I would say things like how stupid I was, how I can't get it together, you're so ugly. I mean, I talked like a darn dog to myself. And I wrote it down in these journals. And when I look back, I think, oh my gosh, it's like reading about somebody else. Like, who is this pitiful little sad puppy writing over here? I mean, that's what it looked like, sounds like.
So I think, what you're saying is important too, is it's that, you were still thinking about appearances like we all do, because not just appearances physically, but appearing that everything is okay.
Always had to appear that everything was okay. Never had to, always a facade, always. Right.
And I think for me, when I realized, like in my adult life, when I would fail at an eating plan or a diet or whatever, and I would go off the deep end, it would be in that mode of, let's go out to extravagant restaurants or eat like really elaborate food that, you wouldn't eat on a normal weeknight. You just we were just stuffing ourselves at Greek Town or, Italian restaurants or whatever. And it was more in that social type thing where, okay, everybody else is doing this. Let's go off the deep end and do this, because that's what everybody around me is happy doing. And they're having a good time. So I'm going to have a good time with them. And it reminds me of when I was a kid. So this has gone back. I didn't realize I had an eating problem until like last night. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, this goes way back, because I had a very, very dysfunctional upbringing, and we got together for family holidays. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because every family holiday would end like an episode of Jerry Springer. Everybody would drink, everybody would get belligerent, and then the fighting would start. And I was always the one, I was the class clown. I was the one that would interject myself. And I remember my cousin and I, and it was his dad and my mom who usually got into it. We would have these eating contests to like entertain the adults of how much we could stuff ourselves with strawberry shortcake, with my grandma's potato salad. And he was a year older than me. And we just thought, you know, if we interject and we stop them from fighting, that will fix everything. And so that's what I thought, that's exactly the same thing that I did as an adult. Let's just go out, stuff ourselves, be the life of the party, and everybody around me will be having a good time. And that probably started when I was 9 or 10 years old, that I remember doing that crap.
And nobody in your family ever indicated that that might not be a great idea.
No, because like LT said, they had their own problems and they were in survival mode. And so
yes, that's what it was.
We had to
survival mode is the key. You're right.
Yeah.
They were inundated with their own and could hardly see to help somebody else, because I am on a sinking ship myself. That's exactly the way it was. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that I was also grew up trying to be a peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, which I think is what you're saying. You were trying to diffuse.
Yeah, diffuse always.
Yeah. Because with my dad, I grew up in a really abusive home. And if you've ever been around someone who's abusive, there's a honeymoon phase where they're not being abusive and everything is so wonderful. And then there's, you can pinpoint it from a mile away. Just shut the cabinet a little too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Here we go.
It would take a few days to get there. It would be, so it'd be this anxiety would be building. And so,
yes,
you learn as a child to be a peacemaker. Tammy said.
Well, do you feel like that you had to walk on eggshells quite a bit in your home?
Yeah. I didn't know how to walk on anything but. We didn't have anything but eggshells.
That's it. Me too. Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and if we didn't walk on the eggshells, I mean, when I say Jerry Springer, I'm not kidding. Like at a holiday function, when the Christmas tree goes flying across the room,
yeah,
that's the level I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right.
We had an Easter once where my brother's wife attacked my mom, and so we refer to that as Easter dinner theater, because I mean, what do you do?
I know.
Like, these people are crazy. So yeah, I think for me, the pattern is just that, in what it made me feel like, I think in every relationship is the same that I felt in every diet, is I'm not good enough. And so I proved that to myself over and over again, through every failed diet attempt, through every failed relationship, through every screwed up thing that happened. It would always be coming back to, I'm not good enough, or I would be able to handle this. I would be able to do this. I would be successful at this. Verona says, when I feel like the load is too heavy, I feel powerless. It reminds me of when I was a child. And then I remember that I'm a grown-ass woman. I can decide what I believe is important, and who cares what anybody else thinks. Right. So at some point, at some point you get there, but unfortunately we spend a lot of years not being there. As you guys both mentioned, it's usually about, most of the women that I deal with are at least 40 by the time that they contact me, which means they've been dealing with this for a good 20, 25 years before they, actually are ready to okay. And usually the ready isn't even coming from I feel emotionally, mentally ready. It's that the weight or the health problems have gotten so severe that I feel like I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not really an emotional awareness.
No.
So, and so speaking of that, how did that pattern of, failure, which is what we feel when we're constantly in that cycle, how did that affect your psyche over the years?
Yeah, depression just made me more isolated. It made me more sad. Just feeling a sense of defeat. And it wasn't just in the weight area. Its little tentacles reached out into other areas of life. And it made me think, I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good friend. I'm not a good employee. I'm not a good volunteer. I mean, I just thought it really, you go to some little dark places in your mind because you feel so worthless about
Yeah.
this area that now it's all of life, everything.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just gave up. I think I just really gave up. When I started college or whatever, I had big dreams. I had big, and it's funny because my mom's been going through her attic cleaning stuff out because she's convinced she's going to die of COVID. So she's cleaning up the attic, and she sent me a picture the other day of my high school PSAT that she found in the attic. And it said, like, you had to pick a career choice, and I picked aerospace engineering.
I remember
And
you
remember
saying
when I told you that? Like, that it was actually printed on there. And so, you know, over the years, when you just get more defeated and more defeated, and then you're just like, okay, well, I just give up. Because
Yeah.
at that point, then also you feel physically so sick that you think, well, that can never happen, because how could I even go back and take a college course, or go back and, you know, how could I even stay up after the kids go to bed and write a paper? Like, I just physically felt like I couldn't do anything. Mentally, I knew I was past that point. So I just gave up.
right. Yeah, I think, and I've heard that from women before. I remember this when a woman who started my program, and after a couple of months, she, she sent me this message, and she's like, I'm crying right now because I was able to go out to my family. So we're in Ohio. She went to something at Nationwide Arena, which is a huge like event. That's where they have the hockey, and they also have a ton of events there. She went there with her daughter and her husband, and it was something where she was out past 11 o'clock, and she still felt good. And she was like, I never would have been able to do this. This would have been something where if I realized we're going to be out late, I would have stayed home and they would have gone without me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, you just get used to that. You start settling for a shitty life.
Yeah.
Where you can't participate the way that you want to. And like you said, LT, I think, I just decided, I wouldn't have admitted this at the time, but I, in my mind, I really just felt like there's no area where I'm good enough. There's
In
nothing.
anything.
Right. So, so then, that makes it too, like a lot of things that one thing that I hear repeatedly from women, when I'll talk to them about a plant-based diet, about my program, is they're just like, I don't want to fail at something else.
Right.
Because you just start to be afraid then, because that feeling sucks so much that you just don't even want to try anymore. And that's the thing, is that risk. So when you're afraid of any kind of risk, your comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you're just balled up like this. And because everything hurts mentally and physically. So being in that space, what made you start working with me? What was there and maybe there wasn't anything different. Maybe this was just something else. We were like, I'm gonna give it a try. But was there anything different? How did you feel starting this?
I knew that it had to be something with real food, and I just wasn't doing a program. I wasn't going to do a gimmick anymore. Like I'd said before, I had more than had it. I mean, it was way beyond that. And so I just realized how addicted I was when you start when you start feeling better within a week or two. Yeah. And then your mind starts having belief again and possibilities, and things start opening up, and you think, my gosh, this is what it was. I was addicted to all of this fat, sugary, buttery, crappy food. And then you just kind of get hopeful again. And I think I had that glimmer of hope coming in. That's the thing I will say about me. I never lost hope completely. Even at the dregs of the dregs, I still had a glimmer, like something, someday, somehow. And at the time when I was at the pit, I did not realize what it was going to be or what it was going to look like. Right. But within a few weeks of being with you, I finally saw what it looked like. Right. And I thought, this is what I have been thinking about when I've been in the pit all these years. But I didn't know that this was the one. I
Yeah.
didn't know that this was it, but this is the one. And it's because I'm not deprived and I'm still eating things that I like. And I have all this energy and endurance, and all these addictions have kind of faded away. And then to top it all off, I've got this circle of support and accountability. So
Right.
you're hitting all the levels, but I didn't quite know that with you in the beginning, but I figured it out it happened pretty quick.
Right. So your thing is you still had some hope. And so
A glimmer.
A glimmer. With the research and stuff that you had done about plant-based diet and things like that, you were like, okay, this could be it.
This could be it.
Yeah.
And within a few weeks, I said, this is it.
Right.
This is it.
All right. So Joanne, you've already established that you had no hope.
I had no hope. I really had no hope, because the whole 6 months prior to that, I was in a boot up to my ankle and had gained even more weight.
Yeah.
And I was completely hopeless, because at that point I couldn't even get up to take care of the kids or to cook a meal or whatever, because I couldn't have any weight on my foot. So I was in a really bad place. And I guess I just, when I thought about plant-based, I knew that I had to do something like that. I knew I needed a full lifestyle switch, because there wasn't going to be any little change I was going to make, because that would be too much like what I had already been doing. I knew I needed to do something bigger,
radical,
and it had to be a full lifestyle thing. I couldn't just sort of stick one foot in and not do it. And the day I reached out to you, it was, I knew that you, and in that first text that we had, I knew you weren't going to put up with my crap. I knew that you were, in the first conversation, you called me out on 17 things, and you're like, well, you're doing this and you're doing that. Why are you doing this? I'm like, I am doing all that. Why am I doing all that? And I think I knew in that moment, this lady's not letting me off the hook. She is not going to let me go backwards. And so that's why I jumped in both feet, and I'm so glad I did, because you haven't let me off the hook still.
You never let anybody off the hook.
You're not.
It's true. And tough love is a love language that I responded well to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to be brutally honest with me, and you are very good at that, and can still maintain who you are in doing that. You just really have a gift at that. And I remember the very first time I ever lost a significant amount of weight, when I hired that trainer that came to my house, something that she said to me, and I still try to say this when we coach people. She said, when you lose this weight, not if, she said, when you lose. And that was the first time I had ever had somebody say, when you lose it, like that assumes that you're going to lose it. And so I love to do that now, because I am just going in with the assumption of when you get to where you want to be.
Right.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and that's the empowerment part.
It is.
I think the thing that I hope I'm doing with everybody is calling them out in a way which makes them realize that you actually are in control. You have the power. And that is a great, calling somebody out on how they're, responding to something makes them realize that it's not just your circumstances. You actually have control over so much. Don't, because I gave a lot of my control away over the years. I gave control of my finances away. There's just so many things that, I did that I look back on, and I'm just like, why did I, but it's just was easier, because especially if you don't feel capable, and you feel exhausted and you feel overwhelmed, it's just kind of easier to give your power away to other people, whether it's your spouse or whatever. And so, and as I said, as your comfort zone gets smaller, it's a risk to take control over things. And so that feels scary in and of itself. So over, if you think back to when you started to now, how have your feelings about yourself changed?
Believe in myself a lot more, really understand that I am capable of doing quite a bit. And I can do it very well. I mean, I'm not just saying that I'm over here just half-ass doing it. I really can do stuff. I really can.
Right.
And so now it's kind of like I'm just saying, you know, you're worthy, you're worth it.
Yeah.
And you're going to put up some boundaries, and you're going to tell people no on some things that you said yes to that you really didn't want to do. I'm not going to do that anymore. If you want to do it, great, do it. But if you don't feel bad about it. And I really take time to look out for myself as far as my exercise and how I take care of myself and how I prep and how I eat. All that plays into it because I'm setting myself up and my choices and my decisions for success. I'm steering the boat on that.
Right. What do you think?
Right. And I think,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you how you feel.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually, you know, I have hope again. Like all of the stuff that you've helped us unpack, all of the mindset work we do, I just feel like I've unpacked it all and let that burden go. And now I don't have that burden of all of that self-doubt. And I remember one night, I think it was like 2 a.m. you texted me and we were talking and you said something to me like, I just think you're making yourself small and you don't need to. And you said, I feel like you have low self-esteem. And I got really like, no, I don't have low self-esteem.
I remember that. Yeah. You're like,
I'm
no,
like, I mean, I wasn't even just being defensive. I really didn't think that of myself because even with all the struggles that I've had, I still put myself out there, but I think it was in that capacity of, I want to be the class clown. I want to be the fixer. I want to make everybody in the room happy. And so I felt like that was self-esteem when it wasn't. It was, I felt broken. I saw everybody around me broken and I just wanted to fix it. And when you called me out on that, I was like, damn, how does she do this? Like, get out of my head. Like, so, and having worked on that now, it's a game changer. It's a night and day difference. And now I'm looking at the next chapter, like, when do these kids get out of the house? Like, when are they going to college? Because I've got the whole next chapter to go. And physically, I can do more than I've done in the last 40 years now,
right.
when my body is fixed. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not hopeless anymore. I'm not feeling like this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to sweep the floor the rest of my life.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
It's all downhill from here, which is, that is a theme with so many people that I talk to is it's that acceptance, the false acceptance that it's not going to get better, you know, and then you have, like I said, you know, before, like there was someone on my timeline who had a meme that said, you know, I'm at the age where if I drop something, I just look at it and think to myself, do I really need it? Instead of, you know, bending down and picking it up. And that person was 44 years old.
Yeah.
But that's what we start doing. We start just being like, well, you know, I'm getting old now when we're like halfway through our life. Linda says, I knew there was hope too, but didn't know until I found a plant-based diet. Plant-based eating and mindset learning has given me freedom from many unhealthy mindsets I had resulting from years of relationship abuses and learned self-doubt. No more. I am not a result of other people treating me poorly. That's such a good comment. Because yeah, I mean, especially if you grew up in any kind of situation where you either witnessed that or were treated that way, you learned how to operate in that environment. And you didn't necessarily, most of us didn't just decide, you know, you don't turn 18 and go, oh, I was operating in an environment where there was abuse and now I'm not going to do that. You know, like it's not, you just kind of keep going until like, you know, there's a moonstruck moment where you either smack yourself or someone else smacks you and says, snap out of it. This is not, you don't have to live like that unless you choose it.
That's what you did. You smacked me and said, unless there's a rock on you and you cannot move, Get
And
out
I
of your
will
head.
say, it is very therapeutic to be able to talk about it and to be honest and open and to share these feelings, especially for somebody who grew up having to have a facade and everything was fine. You know, it destigmatizes all of those little dark feelings. And it just, when you bring things to light, things just can get better. But when you stay in the dark and you hide in your little shadows with your little thoughts and you hold it, no, this is mine and I'm not saying this and I'm not going to do that.
Right.
You know, it's not easy. What Joanne and I are doing, it's not easy to have to talk about things that we failed at and things that we do, but yet it is very freeing to us. And we know that it is helping somebody, because somebody has got to resonate. We are not the only ones that did this. And we know that we're not, because we've got a group of people that tell us that. And that's why we like to use the phrase that we are a soft place to fall, because we can understand when you need to express yourself and say things, and you've got to work through it. It is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It is realization after realization. And you know, you have to work through, you got to go through some mud too. There's going to be some work before you get to the other side. There is going to be mud.
I think that, I mean, the great thing about that process is that physically you do start losing weight right away and you start feeling better right away, like you guys said.
And that is what has helped. That is where the hope comes in.
That it frees you up, because then we start working on, okay, what are the mindsets that have been holding you back so far in your life? And then you start working on that stuff so that it's both of those things. But I think of the third part, which is equally important, is that it brings you closer to other women and out of that competition mode. Because when we all feel bad about ourselves, we feel like we're in competition with every other woman out there.
Right.
And you know that, and it shows in our society. Women are the hardest on one another.
Yeah.
And that only holds us back, you know. And so the more that we can be honest with one another about how we're feeling about this stuff and admit these things and support one another, as we move forward, we realize it's not a competition.
No.
We feel like it is because of the way society or whatever has pitted us against each other, but it's actually, it doesn't have to be that way. Now,
oh gosh, when you straighten somebody else's crown, your crown gets straightened, and the lady who's watching you straighten the crown gets her crown straightened.
Right.
I mean, it's a win-win all the way around.
Right.
Yeah.
So how has this affected your success? How is that change in how you feel about yourself affected your success, not just in, so two parts. How has it affected your health in this journey, and how is it showing up in other areas of your life?
You know, my husband used the word this week, and he didn't even know he was using a word that resonated so much with me. He said, you know what? You really seem more content. And I put it down as my non-scale victory. And that word encompasses so many different feelings, because in all my years of struggle, I never, ever, ever had a contentedness. There was always a little something extra. And I'm like, you know, I really am, because I am just, I feel different. I feel like I am presenting myself differently in the world. I feel like my whole aura about me is different. You know, you can just kind of see it in my eyes, how you smile and how you look at things differently. And it's a welcome change, and it's a relief, and it's a freedom, and it's a monkey off the back. And it has affected every relationship that I have any contact with, from my husband to my children, to my mother, to a friend, to a neighbor. Everything is different and they're not different. I'm different.
Right, exactly.
My perspective is different. My attitude is different.
Your circumstances are the same.
They're the same.
Everything has changed.
Right. And their pandemic is going on. An election just happened. And I don't want to say I'm Pollyanna over here, but I really am just kind of doing my own thing and skipping through it. Right. And I think that before I would have been in the bed with a blanket over my head. So I really have taken care of myself, and that's how I can approach things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, the thing that's been the biggest change or whatever for moving forward is that I'm breaking cycles that have been generations in my family and generations of women who have been abused and then had really poor coping mechanisms and just lived out their lives in survival mode. And I was heading there, you know, not that I was ever abused as an adult, but I was abusing myself. You know, once you taught me about self-sabotage, and I realized that every time I would go to the pantry for, like, LT, your favorite, the Little Debbie's, you know, every time I would go to the pantry for a cosmic brownie, I was abusing myself. Like I really actually was. That was my form of self-abuse, was just stuffing my face with crap. And when you stop doing that and you realize that that's what it is, and you're just living the same cycle that your mom lived and that her mom lived, and that's the exact opposite of what you wanted to do, but here you are doing it. I think that doing all the mindset work and getting that hope back and recognizing self-sabotage and being able to turn that a 180 and turn that around, I feel like that's just one more cycle in my family history that I'm breaking, because I have 2 daughters and they're teenagers, and I don't want them to see me self-sabotaging. I don't want them to see me not having hope. And I feel like now they don't, you know, maybe they did when they were younger, but now in the years when they're going to have to be making those decisions for themselves soon, I feel like it's a game changer.
Right. Yeah. Generational curses are heavy.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think about a lot. And it's, all 3 of us have daughters. So whether you have a daughter or a son, because men can perpetuate cycles as well, right? So we want to raise children. If you have children, we want to raise children who are healthy mentally and emotionally and have the right coping mechanisms so that they don't perpetuate the things that have been handed down to us.
Right.
And even if you don't have children, if you have, anybody in your life, because like LT was saying, the way that you treat someone doesn't just affect that person, it affects how they treat people.
Right.
So everyone in your life is touched by this. So I just want to wrap this up by saying, to bringing it full circle, like I said at the beginning, which is that, that moment when I looked at myself in the mirror, and I've talked about this before. So what happened was I normally got dressed in the bathroom right after I got out of the shower. And then this day, nobody was home and I had forgotten my clothes. And so I went to the bedroom, and that's where the mirror was. And I saw myself, and I just sat down on the bed and sobbed, because I was just like, what have I done to myself? How did this even happen? And that could have been another one of those moments where I said, you're fat, you're ugly, you can't do this, you are too weak, or just I give up. Any of the things that we've been talking about. But what I started to do at that point, and that was a really low point in my life, and my grandma had just passed. And my grandma and I were very close when I was little, especially, but, all through my life. But she sort of raised me. So, I started thinking about when I was a little girl, I started thinking about who was that person, because I had some moxie, I climbed as high as I could on the tree until somebody, my grandma would come out of the house and be like, good Lord, get out of there, or, you're riding down the hill on the big, on the big wheel as fast as you can. And you're, what I mean? You're brave, and you have hope about things. And so instead of hating myself the way that I was, I realized that little girl was still in there. And that's who I needed to love and help her heal and help her, more of her come out in my life. And so I hope that anybody who has watched this today or will watch the replay will think about that, because sometimes it is hard to love yourself as you are right now. But you have to forgive yourself for that and realize that that person, that little girl that you were is still there.
Yeah.
She just has a whole bunch of layers on top of her right now. It's just heavy. And so as you start to peel those layers away, both physically and mentally, she can shine again. And so that's, that's self-love. And I hope that everybody can realize that I always say, if you start this journey because you hate yourself, it's not gonna stick, because you've already decided you're not worth it.
Right.
Any parting words from you guys?
Well, I have a perfect illustration of that little girl, and I'll post it in the comments. Joanne had sent it to me early on when she was coaching me. She still is, but early on. And it just made me sob when I saw that, because I thought that little girl, you're right, she's still in there. And we're going to help you find her again. And she hasn't gone anywhere. She really hasn't. And it doesn't take that long to find her. And you're still going to have some weight to lose, and it's going to be a little time on that end, but you're going to find her up here, and it's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
Take it from somebody who has done every program in the book. I've done it all. Y'all, this is the one that works, because this is the one where you're going out buying real food and you're learning how to manage it, and you're going to have people support you and tell you what to do. So this, my phone's going to, this is the one.
Yeah.
26 programs later, I think I've tried them. I think I've done it. So
yeah, we're gonna have to have you list those sometime.
Oh my gosh.
We've all done so many, but I have definitely not done 26.
Yeah. And like I say, that doesn't even count the stuff that you could get in the drugstore. I mean, remember Dexatrim? I think I started out with that. I'm not even counting Dexatrim, but see, I probably need to.
I took Dexatrim. Man, I forgot about that. That's a blast from the past. Holy
1980s, about 1987.
That's right. Holy
That's right.
God. Anna says, Lori, that's so well put. Such a simple but deep meaning of self-love. Love that little girl in you and let her shine again. Let her feel and love her. Tammy says, I'm sure I'm up with LT on the programs. But yeah, man, Dexatrim. Holy God, I totally forgot about that one. Jeez. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I think that the overriding theme here today is hope. And it is that when you start with love with yourself, you don't even have to believe that you can do it. I don't think either one of you guys are saying, oh, I came in this with 100% confidence. No. You don't have to do that. What you have to do, though, is be open to learning how to love yourself, because that.
Did we lose Lori?
I guess she's frozen.
That is, as you do.
Oh, here she
Am I frozen?
You were frozen.
You were frozen.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what I said. So
about loving yourself, how we have to love ourselves. Yeah.
As you, that's the thing, is it's not just about, the weight starts to come off right away, but that's happened to a lot of us before, right? So the key is to learning how to love yourself in such a way that this becomes a lifestyle. The lifestyle is not just being healthy on the inside, but healthy or on in your body, but healthy in your mind and in your spirit. And that's what keeps it going. And that's what makes you content. And that is what makes you like, I'm changing things, not just for myself, but for my girls. Like that's the thing that makes this a way of living and not just a diet. So, thank you guys so much for today, and I'm so happy that so many people tuned in. We always go back and look at the comments, so if you're watching the replay, then please comment, and we will come and check that out and respond to you.
And I'll send that little girl. I'll send that picture of that little girl.
Yeah.
Yes, please do. And yeah, think about that. Think about, and even maybe, you know, you can post pictures of yourself when you were that person, because she's still in there. She's
She's
still in
there.
there. That doesn't
Mhm.
change. So have an amazing weekend. Also, so as you guys have seen, the planners are here and they are gorgeous. If you want to order a planner, let me know. I posted links everywhere, but those are going out and they're so amazing. And that can, you know, get this new year that is quickly approaching off on the right foot. God knows we all want to get rid of 2020 and
Yes.
move
Yeah.
on.
Away with it.
Yes.
Good Lord. So if you would like one of those, then order that. I am sending them all out this weekend. So it's exciting. So have a great night. Sherry says, you ladies are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And I will see you guys next week.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.